Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, I am right now at this exact moment filled with regret because one of our wonderful Ask the Insiders members at BuckeyeScoop.com suggested earlier in the week that we have a T-shirt that we sell that says, "Tom, how's it going?" or "Tom, how you doing?" And I was like, man, that's a great, I would buy that T-shirt. And now I wish I could remember who it was that suggested that, because it was a great suggestion. And I think we need to start selling Buckeye Weekly merch. Just, a shirt with like a lot of lawn tractors and geese and trains and planes on it. I mean, there's a lot of possibilities.
It might get a little busy, but busy is good. Zubaz was busy. Everybody loved that.
I'm thinking quiet genius at work, and the Buckeye Weekly logo, and then all the different stuff around it. I'm just sort of thinking out loud here, just sort of spitballing, but I think we may be onto something big.
How do you put the sound of wind on a shirt, though? Is it like the blowing lines, I guess, or
like the cartoon picture of the cloud blowing? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's probably the way to do it.
Because you got to distinguish between like blowing lines and like stink lines, so we got to be careful there. And,
those may be on there as well. Yes,
that could be. Did we really need to have the stink flies on the shirt? But maybe that just signifies the person wearing the shirt, not the people who have the merch is about. So, but then do we really want to do that to the people we're trying to sell you the shirt, and we're already putting your stink flies on it? Probably not good marketing. Depending on who you're targeting.
Probably not ideal, depending on the target market. Yeah, I'm not sure that's ideal. We'll keep workshopping this.
But with our target audience, right in the wheelhouse, maybe. No offense. And again, I said no offense, so please don't take offense. Tom, I don't know if you saw this on the internet. We kind of have gotten involved in a documentary.
Kind of have. That's pretty exciting. We've been working on it for quite a while now. I mean, a couple of months at least at this point, and I think we started talking about it kind of the beginning of summer. And it's really nice to actually be able to tell people about it, because we've been working on it for a long time. It's nice to finally be able to talk about it.
So that is, we've released the trailer for that. It's Fight for Football, Saving the 2020 Season, going into detail about the Big Ten canceling last season, the fight to get it back, the parents' involvement, the players' involvement, the Nebraska lawsuit involvement, and the documentary features a ton of guests, a ton of interviews, a lot of stuff that we shot during the season that we didn't have really any idea was going to be part of this. But that's one of the fun things when you're going throughout a season. You just take so many photos, so much video, and it's good to finally be put to use, frankly.
Well, all last fall, I kept feeling, and I think I've said to you a bunch of times, like, we're like the only ones here at these games. Like, I feel like we're like obligated. I mean, the job of journalism is always be the eyes and the ears of the people who can't be there and tell them what it's like. Last year, that felt even more so the case, because normal year you got 100,000 people in the stadium there. There's a lot of people shooting video. There's a lot of people telling you what it's like and posting on Twitter and all that kind of stuff. Last year, I mean, the Indiana game, which turned out to be the biggest game of the regular season, there were like 635 people, I think, in the entire stadium. And a lot of them were on the sidelines playing and coaching and officiating and working in the, working in the security or whatever it was. And it was just like, oh, there's literally no one else here. So there was a lot of stuff last year that I did as a like, well, this needs to be documented, because there's no one else here to see it and show people what this is really like during this crazy and historic time. And then, the producers of the film came to us and said, well, here's what we'd like to do. And I was like, oh, friends, do I have stuff for you? So, all the old videos of like before the Nebraska game last year, walking through an empty campus and the empty tailgating lots and all the signs that say, keep COVID-19 at bay, no tailgating, and the line outside the varsity club, and there's no one there on a college football game day 3 hours before kickoff, and the varsity club is closed and there's like 6 people lined up outside, like all that stuff. The video inside the Indiana game where there's a game going on and you hear the piped in crowd noise, but there's no one there. It's like it's a practice. All that stuff that we collected back then, and it was like, well, this is important historical stuff that we're doing here. Now we get to really all put that all to use in one big project.
I will dispute you on one thing. You said journalism's job is to, what'd you say? Like,
be the eyes and ears for people who can't be there.
No, it's to tell people what to think. But disappointingly, I don't know that this documentary does it, because it just presents like the happenings and from like those of us who lived it, those of us who covered it, some player, well, at least one player, Jonathan Cooper, his mom is in it, talking about what it was like for the parents to be completely left out of it, and having almost no input, or not even input, but like having no say, and then hearing no say from the Big Ten. Randy Wade, Sean Wade's dad, is in it. He was very vocal when this was all going on. So it's good there's some familiar faces in it, some new people that you will meet. But so you can watch the trailer at buckeyescoop.com, or you can search for it on YouTube. And it really, there's a like 2-minute and 20-second version on Twitter, because that's the length that they allow most videos, or you can find like the 3-minute and 50-some second trailer on YouTube or our site. And you watch it, and it gets the juices flowing, it gets the memory going. And that was one of the things when we sat down and were plotting out the timeline of everything that was happening and everything that happened, because I've forgotten a lot of the stuff, or at least not forgotten it, but just pushed it out of my head. When you go back and like look at the stories that we wrote, or emails or whatever, just this timeline, and you're like, holy cow, this happened, and then this happened, and then 2 days later it was this, and then, oh yeah, I remember this. And you have all of this stuff that just comes flooding back, and it's like, it's almost impossible to put all of that in one documentary. I'm not saying we need a sequel, but it was just, it was an incredible year, and very worthy of capturing what happened, especially considering what happened in the Big Ten and what happened everywhere else, especially in the SEC and the ACC.
Yeah, and Tony was at practice this morning, the Ohio State practice. Mark Givler was at Ohio State practice this morning. I was over at the production company. I missed practice this morning. Tony and Mark had me covered. I was over at the production company working with them on the film. I can tell you that, Tony said there's a lot of good stuff in there. This was originally supposed to be like 45 minutes, and, it's in TV. When you say it's an hour program, it's really like 44 minutes, and they have 16 minutes of commercials. This is all blown out the door. There's way too much stuff to talk about. There's way too much good sound from these interviews. It's going to be over an hour at this point, and it is not done. They're still working. There may be another interview that gets done if they have, if they can add someone else to help kind of put some more additional kind of perspective on things. So yeah, this is very much still a work in progress, but man, it is really, really fascinating, because I'm with you. Like we sat in their office back in June, and we're kind of trying to lay out, okay, how do we tell this story? What are the important points of the story? And kind of started putting together a timeline. And there was just a lot of like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. Like, oh yeah, I forgot, I remembered that being so much, different, or you forget the absolute insanity of like early September, when, every day there was someone on Twitter with, hashtag fans with sources, people who, have, this random guy with 500 followers. He's definitely the one who's going to break the news straight out of the Big Ten office. Like, absolutely, that's how that story is going to break. Yeah, absolutely. So you just had a bunch of just the complete craziness. And then looking back at the Big Ten putting out a new schedule, which you in the trailer, you see you talking about the fact that this was maybe one of the best thought out things the Big Ten has ever done. And then 6 days later, just like sheer panic, cancel the season. And everyone else who didn't panic just kind of went, well, we got to keep going and see how this looks. You don't have to make a hard decision yet. You can just kind of say, we'll see how this goes, because things keep changing. And that obviously ended up being the right way to do it. And, I think there's a whole interesting conversation to have that will be had partly in the film is, what does this all mean for the future? And, what did this cost the Big Ten to kind of seed, in the Jim Delaney years, the Big Ten was one of the leaders, if not like the co-leader of the college football world. There is no college football commissioner, but it was like Jim Delaney and the SEC commissioner, whether it was Mike Slive or Greg Sankey, they were like the co-commissioners, and it was like, we'll just let the other conferences know what we're going to, what we're doing and what they're doing later. Did the Big Ten kind of give up that role? And what does that mean now that the sport is heading into this era of a lot of change, a lot of transition, whether the NIL and the Alston case and conference expansion and realignment? I mean, this is a time in the sports history when it would probably be good to be viewed as one of the sports leaders. And how, what did the decisions made last year, how did those impact the Big Ten and the sport moving forward? There's a lot of interesting conversations to have about all that stuff, and that'll be in the film as well.
As you're talking about this, I'm just thinking SEC speed has won again. They got out in front with Oklahoma and Texas. Slow Big Ten is just sitting back thinking, well, let's just see what tomorrow brings. And maybe tomorrow will bring something good. But right now it's a lot of wait and see, and maybe something will happen. But yeah, the SEC has won again. And exactly, like, will the Big Ten be able to get back even or get back into that gruesome twosome type of thing? Or will it require new leadership? Has the SEC lost the respect for the Big Ten that they once had because of what they saw? And now they kind of have different mission statements almost. Like, it just means more in the SEC, clearly. And yet, everything the Big Ten went through last year, I don't want to say it was for nothing. Canceling it was almost pretty much for nothing. And just the way the story is laid out in this, like, you don't even necessarily have to take any angles or go in with any preconceived notions. The story, unveils exactly as like if you wanted to do a hit job, you could, but you don't need to steer it that way because Kevin Warren kind of brought it on himself. And he's like, and then the trailer is great at the end as well.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, this is done with a nonprofit educational foundation. This is not, done with the National Enquirer. This is a journalistic organization that is, talking to reporters who cover this in a news function. This is not a bunch of hot take columnists. This is people who, beat writers from Ohio State, Clemson, Alabama, Iowa, Nebraska, people who are covering like major programs across the country in a straight news function. This is not, get your local like Mike Bianchi or Greg Doyle or whoever, like hot take local newspaper columnist. This is like get the people who are covering the season in a straight news fashion and just what happened. Now, the facts as they are laid out are not particularly flattering to the league that decided, like, pull the ripcord, get out, completely impossible. And then it turns out 3 weeks later, like, well, actually it was possible because literally everyone else at every other level of the sport is doing it. So maybe you were a little hasty there. I mean, this is, as the kids say, hashtag facts only. So yeah, there will be, but as you mentioned, the last line of the documentary, Dan Lust, who is the sports law attorney who we've had on the Morning Scoop a bunch to talk about like the Alston case and NIL and that kind of stuff. He was, sort of first came to prominence last summer in conjunction with this case. And, did the Big Ten have a vote? Did the Big Ten not have a vote? And the Nebraska 8 and their lawsuit and all that kind of stuff. So he was a big part of the documentary. And, he says this was an interview that was shot in, I don't know, early July, something like that. And he says, I think if the Big Ten had it to do all over again, I think they would do some things differently. And then 2-3 weeks later at Big Ten Media Days, there's Kevin Warren up at the podium, and Kevin Warren says, if we had it all to do all over again, we'd make the same decisions. It's like, oh, no lessons were learned at all. Good. That's when you make a mistake, you want to make sure you don't learn any lessons from it. That's the most important thing. That's the most important trait in leadership. Never learn anything. If
you can only take one lesson from this, it's don't take any lessons from this. So the premiere will the world premiere.
World premiere. We need to get like those big like searchlights that they have for, like how, yeah. Do you think they'll let us put our hands in the cement outside the Lenox Theater?
I don't see why not. We might have to actually pour some cement though, and then do it.
I'll get a bag of Quick Crete. We'll make it happen.
Perfect.
Yes, the premiere is Monday, August 30th. It is at the Phoenix Theater at Lenox. It used to be the AMC Theater at Lenox, but right across the river from the Ohio State campus. 7 p.m. We will screen the documentary. It will run. We don't know the exact runtime yet. They're still putting it together, but an hour, give or take. And after that, we'll have a live Q&A with a whole bunch of Buckeye Scoop staff: Tony, myself, Kirk, Mark Givler, Bill Green. Nevada Buck's going to be there, which is a rare public appearance for Nevada Buck. So that's going to be a big deal. We may have some other folks there. I think we're sort of figuring out if there are going to be some additional folks there. We'll try and twist Bill Bender's arm. Bill Bender's in the film, our good buddy from the Sporting News. He's local. We'll try to twist his arm and get him there. He's always a good time. But we'll have a live Q&A after the event. And then there's a sort of an after party kind of post event that Kirk has reserved a spot for. So that'll be fun as well. To get tickets, you have to be a member of BuckeyeScoop.com. This is an exclusive thing for Buckeye Scoop members. So if you sign up today at Buckeye Scoop, you can sign up to get tickets for this event. It should be an awesome time. I am really looking forward to it, and it is just the first of what should be a lot of hopefully fantastic, really great live events for this season. And you and I may do a live event in Minneapolis later that week, sort of a little more unofficial, a little more casual, but we have plans to maybe meet up with some Buckeye Scoop members. And now I've said it out loud, so now we have to make it happen. So there you go, contractual obligation. So now you have to do it. Now we have to go to a baseball game. Oops, I've said too much.
You say a little more casual. I'm planning on being a lot casual in both places. So just so you know. Yeah,
they in an unrelated note, they serve beer at the Phoenix Lenox Theater. If that would make your viewing experience any more enjoyable. So that's,
can I bring my own?
I'm not sure. Well, depends on how big your pockets are. Why is Tony wearing carpenter jeans? Well,
let me just tell you, Tom, I never go into a theater without bringing something from home. So, whether it be Skittles or a 12-pack of Busch Light.
There you go. So come hang out with the classiest Ohio State beat writer there is, Tony Gerdeman, at the AMC or the Phoenix Lenox Theater. The Lenox Theater, you know where it is. Lenox 24, right across the river from Ohio State's campus. On Monday, August 30th. Just sign up at BuckeyeScoop.com, just become a member, and then you have access to there's a thread on the Ask the Insiders board all about how to get access. And the ticket price to get in all gets donated to our Pay It Forward campaign, which provides for people who are, maybe have lost a job, people who are active duty or retired military, people like that to get, basically free memberships to BuckeyeScoop.com. Just for people who, as a thank you for people who've served, and for people who may not be in a position to afford memberships right now. It's just a nice way to kind of pay it forward. And so you get to do a nice thing for someone else, and you also get to go see a fantastic movie, talk to some fun people, have a nice meet and greet. Should be a really awesome time.
Now, are you actually going to be seen on screen?
Yes.
Okay,
so
good.
here's the as the film is being put together, my portion is mostly
74
done.
Minutes.
My portion is mostly done. I'm kind of serving as the narrator of the film. That the folks who are putting this together is the Full Story Foundation. They're based out of Columbus, a documentary film production company. They're people I've worked with in the past on a number of projects. I have kind of just freelanced with them for a while. I have worked with them in kind of previous iterations of this organization. I've produced a number of documentaries with them over the years. Really good folks who do fantastic work. And so they have me sort of cast as the narrator of the film. So, when we need to sort of like a bridge from one soundbite to another, I'm kind of bridging you from one to another. So that's where I am. Tony got to shoot his interview in the Key Bank building, and like a big empty floor of the Key Bank building downtown, which looks so cool. It looks like it's a really cool setting. They shot a lot of the interviews there. I'm in front of a plain backdrop in their office with it looks kind of the whole point is it looks very different. I'm looking right into the camera. I'm kind of reading prepared lines to you, my version of prepared lines to you. So I'm not like interviewed in the film, but I'm kind of serving as the narrator, as sort of a narrative device in the film.
Please tell me you used your Australian accent.
Not yet, mate. But we still have to do the last block of the film.
It's going to be like Kevin Costner in his Robin Hood movie where your accent's just going to disappear and appear. It's going to be great.
Now I want to do the Jim Garrison, terrible Massachusetts, New Orleans mashup accent that he did in JFK. Oh man.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Good.
you're planting terrible thoughts in my head now.
Now you're just going to do it subconsciously. And they're going to like, stop. What is with this accent? You're like, what accent? I'm looking forward to it. It'll be fun. It gets me out of the house, so that's good. I've never. Have you ever seen yourself on the big screen?
I've never been on a theater screen. No, I don't think. I've had a bunch of projects on, but I don't think I've ever. Tom, I've definitely never been interviewed for a project on a movie kind of scale. So this will be new and exciting.
Be my 8th. Anyway, let's change subjects here a little bit because this just happened on Thursday. I want to talk about BYU, and then we'll get into the Ohio State linebackers. We talked to the linebackers for a little bit. We'll get into that, but this could be the next big thing in college football. And there's this company in the Provo area called Built Bar, and I believe
Provo, Spain,
Utah.
Do you know what that's from?
I do not. Dumb and Dumber.
Fletch. Come on. Provo,
Fletch,
Spain.
Come on, that's so long ago.
You did the line correctly. Provo, Spain, Utah. Okay. But you accidentally you did it correctly. Sorry, I have to say that every time someone says Provo. So go on.
Well, I mean, accidentally, I do it correctly most of the time. When I do it correctly, it is mostly accidentally. So
there you go. Now you got it.
Yeah, I got it right there. But so this company in the area, I love these reveal videos where, hey, walk on, you're now on scholarship. So this company, this guy, this CEO, whoever he is, this owner, brings up one walk on. He's like, I want you to be employee number 1 for Built Bar. It's a nutritional protein bar. And we're going to pay for your scholarship. And then I guess he asked him like, hey, do you have another team? Like, who any other hardworking walk-ons? And the guy mentions another one. So brings that guy up and he's like, we want you to be employee number 2. We're going to pay for your scholarship. And then he's like, all of the other walk-ons stand up. And so they all stand up and he's like, I want you all as employees 1 through 36, new employees 1 through 36. We're paying for everybody's scholarship, which means now, Tom, that BYU has a fully paid scholarship roster of roughly 120 players, which is about 36 over the number they should have, which now will completely change the game because once one program does it, it kind of spreads like a virus, and we all know what that is like now. And so this is going to change things completely where will you now lose? Will somebody choose to walk on at LSU to play quarterback rather than coming to Ohio State? You thought there was oversigning before. This could really blow some things up, or it may do nothing.
Yeah, I mean, can we take a moment before we, start worrying about the ruin of college football to just talk about how cool that is? That is awesome. That is really, really cool. I was, as I said, in this, at the production company all day today. So I was basically locked in a room, just working on that stuff, not paying attention to anything. And I got home and, we had a little bit of time just to look at some Ohio State interview stuff. And that was it. And you're like, you see the BYU thing? I'm like, what BYU thing? And he explained to me, he was like, that is awesome. That is really, really cool. That is, those walk-on gets a scholarship video. Those are some of my absolute favorite college football things. That was a big thing for Jim Tressel was, if they're a couple under, guys would get scholarships. That was cool. That was always fun. And it's, you're seeing someone's life change. That's someone whose parents don't have to pay $15,000, or if they're out of state, $30,000. That's incredible. That's awesome. So for that to now happen for 36 people, that's life changing. And, there's a whole separate conversation to have about the types of people who can typically walk on. And, there are communities where people don't have access to, don't have the ability from a financial perspective to have that luxury of potentially walking on. So you have an opportunity to reach out to some of those communities as well and have those potentially be areas of growth. And that's awesome. That is a really, really cool thing. And you're right. This is a lot like, one school says, I think it was LSU who was the first one to say oh yeah, you can use our logos and our marks in your advertising. Well, LSU's doing it now. Everyone's going to have to do it because otherwise it's a big recruiting event for LSU. So now everyone has to do it. That's, you know what? great. Like we'll figure out the problems later. Like, I mean, you compare this to like minor league baseball where, you know, guys are sleeping 6 people to a 2-person apartment because they're all getting paid $500 a month and there's no housing stipend and they can't, you know, there's no team dorms anymore. I mean, there's no host families anymore this year because of COVID. So these guys are just kind of like stuck, and like that's a terrible existence. You have people dropping out of the sport because they can't afford it. This is like the complete opposite of that, where you're potentially opening the sport up to more people and giving more people access to it. And you know, there are people. I mean, you talk about people choosing a walk-on spot at one school instead of a scholarship at another. There are people who do that right now. Xavier Johnson, the wide receiver for Ohio State, had a scholarship offer from Iowa State, like preseason number 8 Iowa State, and chose to walk on at Ohio State instead of doing that. And, you know, if something like this happens at Ohio State, and my sneaking suspicion is it probably will, since if this is happening at BYU, it's probably going to happen at a lot of big programs bigger than BYU relatively soon. Like that would be awesome if Xavier Johnson got a scholarship and all these other walk-ons got scholarships. And, you know, that's a cool thing. Then that opens things up to potentially more people. It provides, you know, opportunities for a lot of more people, and it rewards people who are doing a lot of work. I mean, walk-ons are a really, really, really important part of programs. You can't have practice without walk-ons in a lot of cases. So you need them. Right now, it's kind of a thankless thing where you kind of get beat up and, you know, you get a Big Ten championship ring out of it or whatever, and that's cool. And you maybe get a bowl trip or whatever. But, you know, this is a whole nother level to that. So that would be awesome if that really did happen. But yes, it also does open a huge can of worms.
Yeah. And it's going to, and again, I agree. This is a very good thing. It's a great thing for the kids. It is going to even widen the chasm between like a Central Michigan and an Ohio State, because a lot of guys that would go to Central Michigan can now go to Kentucky because the guys who are going to go to Kentucky are now going to Ohio State. There's like this trickle up, and nobody is left for the MAC or the Sun Belt, except for maybe the people that didn't have the grades to walk on. I mean, there's always going to be a little bit of somebody there, but there's, you know, I do wonder, is there still going to be a little bit of a stigma like, oh, you're not going to give me an athletic scholarship, you don't like me that much? Well, I'll go somewhere that does like me more. Maybe that's where, I don't know if it's a big decision, but if you're leaning between 2 schools and it's like, well, they like me more clearly, so maybe I'll go there because they're offering me an athletic scholarship.
Well, and there's also the difference between a walk-on and a preferred walk-on, and that's an important distinction here, because the preferred walk-on number is 105, I think, something like that, like 85 plus another 20 preferred walk-ons, something like that. Preferred walk-ons get to eat in the team dining room, and they can enroll early. They can preferred walk-ons are already part of the program right now. Regular walk-ons have to wait until classes start for the fall semester, so they kind of come in late. I mean, there's some distinctions there that, you know, I don't know if a guy has a just straight walk, you know, just chooses to walk on at Ohio State versus being a preferred walk on versus being a scholarship guy. I don't know if that, you know, there's enough of a chasm there that might not be as appealing. So really you may be increasing the functional scholarship cap to 105 instead of 85, or, you know, whatever those numbers are. But, you know, that's still 20 more scholarship opportunities times. I mean, let's just say that every Power 5 team does that times 65 schools. And, you know, we can have a whole separate conversation about how long is there actually a Power 5 and how many of these 65 teams are actually going to be Power Conference teams 5-10 years from now. And the answer is probably not 65, but even if it's 30, you know, even if it's just like the top 30, that's 600 more people who are getting full rides to college. And, you know, that's cool. That is a really good opportunity. And, you know, yes, there's going to be some kind of a trickle up, but it's also, it's not that enormous of a problem because it's not going to be 130 FBS programs who can do this. UMass is not doing this. UConn is not doing this. UTEP is not doing this. New Mexico State is not doing this. Like, it's going to be the bigger programs. And yes, that will probably increase the amount of talent at Ohio State and Alabama and Georgia and Clemson and places like that as compared to Purdue and Vanderbilt and whatever. But, you know, this is a thing that's happening anyway. So, and this is a podcast whose audience is largely made up of people on the correct side of the fence there, where this is the rich get richer, and that's you're the rich. So in college football sense, like that's fine. This is one of these things that this will ultimately be a good thing for a lot of people. As with conference realignment, there are a lot of people who are not going to come out great out of this probably, but for the Ohio States and Penn States and Michigans and Georgias and Clemsons and Floridas and Alabamas and Auburns and Texases and Oklahomas and yada, 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 this is probably just another advantage. And, nothing I have said or thought about today has changed my impression that we're probably headed for a couple super conferences and 20 to 30 teams in sort of like an elite league in the next 15, 20 years. Like no part of this conversation has changed my mind at all on any of that. And if you're thinking, well, maybe the NCAA will make a rule. No, friends, let me tell you what's going to happen. The NCAA is not going to do this because the NCAA is not going to do something that's going to hurt the powerful schools that they're worried are going to leave them. And also sticking, 600, let's use that 600 number. No, we're going to take scholarships away from 600 people. Like, yeah, okay. Let's talk about, the NCAA is pretty stupid when it comes to marketing and PR and messaging. I don't think even the NCAA is that stupid, but I've been proven wrong before. So we'll see.
Let's hope. Because I do love it when you're proven wrong. But if you're going to ask players to play 14, 15, 16 games, there have been people talking about, well, enlarge the rosters, make give them more scholarships, and this is one way to do that. So I'm all for that. 105 scholarships. It used to be unlimited back in the day. So Tom, let's talk about the linebackers. Talked with Al Washington on Thursday, along with Steel Chambers, Dallas Gant, Cody Simon, Taraja Mitchell, and Tommy Eichenberg. Not a lot to relay other than it's basically like nobody's confirming it, but it's basically just the will and the mic, because those were the positions that Al Washington was talking about. Everybody's rotating. I asked me or somebody asked Cody Simon, like, so are you a Mike or Will? And he's like, well, everybody's just an X right now. Like an X on the board, and then we get moved around.
That's a receiver, Cody. Come on, what are you new here?
And so then Dallas Gant gets up there, and I'm like, so like what? You guys just positionless now? He's like, well, not positionless, but you spend some time here at practice, and then you spend some time over here. And as we've talked about many times, the will and the mic, they would like them to be interchangeable. Al Washington said there are some guys who need to be able to play both, but other guys don't need to. I think Taraja Mitchell said like he's able to call plays, like, and again, like there's no confirmation on any of this, because even though we talk to the players, it's like, well, I'm a linebacker. Yes. But which linebacker? I'm me linebacker. And so, you assume Taraja Mitchell is at will, and Cody Simon and Dallas Gant are working, battling for that Mike spot, and Kayvon Pope is in the mix as well. But it's just it's a crowded room with those two at those two spots. But Al Washington did say if they need to, they can bring out 3, or Tom, they can bring out 4 linebackers.
In the past they have brought out 4 linebackers. Tony, how did that go? Let's not talk about the Alabama game. Let's talk about like the Michigan game in 2019. How did that go with 4 linebackers? Because I seem to remember not great. Like
still not great.
Not great. Yeah. So my professional recommendation would be they not do the 4 linebacker thing. But it is interesting because there were people on our board earlier this week talking about the linebacker room's a little thin, and do they have enough guys coming in the pipeline and all that? And it's like, well, if you're dividing by 3, there's not that many people per position. Once you're dividing by 2, it's like, oh wow, they have so much depth at linebacker now all of a sudden, because this is the transition of football into what basketball has been, where you don't have a point guard and a shooting guard and a small forward and power forward and a center. It's positionless basketball. We've heard Chris Holtman talk about that for years now. You're turning into positionless football, where it's like, okay, Craig Young's a linebacker. Or is he? Is he a safety? Well, he's a bullet. That's sort of in between. Like the slot corner. Well, that's actually a safety, but it's also the slot corner. Like, well, it's kind of in between. You're sort of seeing, this is like their best 11. It's like a UFO defense. Like it is your best 11 guys. Whoever the best 11 guys for any given play, any given situation, that's going to be who they put out there. And you're not necessarily going to have it's not going to be like a soccer where it's like, we're in a 4-4-2. Like you're in, in football, it's not necessarily a base 4-3-4. It may be a 4-2-5, except the 5 is Craig Young. And he's like sort of a linebacker. So it's like a 4-2.5 and a 4.5, but well, it kind of depends. The lines and the distinctions are not quite as clear as they used to be, but that makes you much more unpredictable on defense. Like if Craig Young can be a linebacker and be up in run support, but can also be, is quick enough to be a deep safety potentially, like that makes your defense can be still relatively simple and confuse the heck out of the opposing quarterback. So, that's why this is all headed this direction. And, Ohio State is not exactly on the forefront of this movement. I mean, Clemson and Isaiah Simmons and that kind of stuff. I mean, this has been going on for a little while. This is going to be good for Ohio State to finally, it seems like every year is the year of the tight end and every year is the year of the bullet. It seems like maybe this is really the year the bullet does arrive at Ohio State.
We got to see just a little bit of practice, and I shot some video of there's the safeties were doing a drill, and it was like the safeties were the entire back 5, back 6, maybe even, but it was like Josh Proctor is the deep safety, and then you had Court Williams and Craig Young out there and Ronnie Hickman and Andre Tarantino. I'm like, that looks pretty interesting. Like those 5 aren't all going to be out there together at the same time, I would assume, unless this is like some quarter, nickel dime quarter, and then there'd be some corners coming in. But it's like, I wouldn't mind seeing Craig Young, Court Williams out there together, and maybe they can eventually get there. They were not part of the linebackers. They, of course, are part of the safeties. We will talk to the safeties eventually. Anything else, Tom, before we get out of here?
No, this is a big weekend. We've kind of been counting down to this weekend. This is Saturday is the scrimmage, and this is the end of week 2. This is, when Ryan Day was asked much earlier this year about when do you want to have your starting quarterback named, this is basically when he talked about. It sounds like they want to kind of have their starting offensive line figured out then. So you really have stuff kind of in stone. And now, okay, you can move forward and get these guys used to working together. And there's no more drama around any of these situations. I feel like we have a pretty good idea where a lot of these positional battles are going. I'm still kind of intrigued by running back, which is probably not going to be in stone by the end of this week. That one is really kind of intriguing to me. But I feel like we're going to, stuff may be a little more formalized after this weekend. They probably won't talk to us about it, but our Ask the Insiders board will have lots of information about it. So you can find that all. Nevada has had a practice report, I think literally every practice. So you can, all the stuff that players and coaches won't tell us, you can just find out on our Ask the Insiders board at BuckeyeScoop.com. So in addition to getting to see a movie later this month, that's also a good reason to be a member of Buckeye Scoop.
And we were going to talk to Kevin Wilson after the scrimmage on Saturday. That interview session with the tight ends got bumped up to Friday. So we won't have any coaches until Monday. So pretty much the only place to find out about what happened on the scrimmage at the scrimmage would be on our Ask the Insiders board. Again, we're not promising that's going to happen, but we are guaranteeing and we are already putting it out there for you. So we'll put the pressure on the other people to deliver what we have promised. Al Washington also said that he's got a pretty good idea of his starters, even though like what's a position, what's a Mike, what's a Will, but he's got a pretty good idea. And of course, this weekend we'll only verify or destroy those thoughts. So that will do it for today. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you for listening. As Tom said, just go become a member. YouTube.com/Buckeye Scoop as well for all kinds of interviews. See the linebackers today, offensive line. Gosh, a ton of offensive line interviews. We've had already the quarterbacks. We'll have the tight ends coming up. Had the running backs, not yet, but we will. Also, I asked a couple of linebackers about Travion Henderson. I'll go ahead and write about that probably later tonight. And spoiler, they like him. He's pretty good, apparently. So look forward to that. And thank you guys for watching and listening, and we will talk to you later.